The dog stopped cold at the tree lean, tail stiff, ears up. The deputy followed, and that's when they saw him, an old man, wrists bound, lips cracked, not a sound, not a name, just one patch on his sleeve, 101st Airborne. What the K9 did next made a town stop whispering and start remembering. If stories like this move you, hit subscribe and comment respect. The dog froze just past the clearing. It was early morning, mist still hung low across the pine floor. Deputy Carla Finch tugged the leash gently, but the German shepherd wouldn't budge. He stood alert, nose high, tail straight. "Ranger," she called softly. The dog didn't bark, just stepped forward once, then twice, then stopped again. And then she saw it, at the base of a half-fallen oak, half covered in wet leaves and pine needles, a man, slumped forward, hands pulled tight behind his back, bound to the trunk, gray hair matted to his head, cheeks sunken. For a moment, she thought he was already gone. Then she saw his chest rise, barely, and his lips move. She knelt down fast, radio crackling on her hip. "Sheriff, I've got a live male, white, elderly, found restrained near mile marker 12, EMS needed now, possible hypothermia." She took off her jacket and wrapped it around his shoulders. He didn't speak, didn't look at her, his eyes stared ahead, distant. But as she gently reached under his collar to check for injuries, she saw it, a patch, faded but clear, 101st Airborne Division. Her breath caught. The man, this broken, silent man, was a veteran. Sheriff Ray Hammond arrived 15 minutes later. By then, EMTs had started cutting the zip ties, loading the man onto a stretcher. He hadn't said a word, just clutched the coat Carla had wrapped around him. "Any ID?" Ray asked. "Nothing," Carla replied. "No wallet, no phone, just this." She handed him the patch, now separated from the coat. Ray held it in his palm for a long time. The dog, still sitting nearby, didn't take his eyes off the spot where the man had been found, like he knew, like something about this wasn't just wrong, it was personal. By 9 a.m., the town already knew. They always did. The EMTs hadn't even left the edge of Pine Hollow before the chatter started. They found someone out there, old man, tied to a tree like a criminal. Some say it was just a drifter, others say he had a military jacket. By the time Sheriff Hammond got back to the station, 2 reporters were already waiting outside. He waved them off. "No name, no statement, not until we know who he is." Inside, Carla poured herself a cup of stale coffee with shaking hands. She hadn't stopped thinking about the man's eyes, how they didn't blink much, how they looked past her, like he wasn't sure if he was still alive. They'd brought him to County General, stable, barely responsive, no ID, just the patch and the bruises. "He didn't wander out there," Carla said, standing in the doorway of Ray's office. "Someone put him there." "That was intentional, planned." Ray nodded. He knew small towns didn't forget faces, but somehow, no one seemed to know this man, at least not yet. Out in the kennel behind the station, Ranger, the K9, still sat alert, wouldn't eat, wouldn't settle. Every time someone opened the back door, he looked toward the woods. "He wants to go back," Carla said. Ray looked up. "Let him." It was the nurse who first noticed the tattoo, small, faded, inside the left wrist, a date, then a name, Harris, Raymond J. She told the attending, who told the charge nurse, who called the station. Within an hour, Sheriff Hammond was standing in room 214 of County General. Raymond lay still, eyes closed, for dripping slow, a bruise across his temple, scrapes along both arms, like someone had dragged him. Ray pulled up a chair. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said, voice low, "but I'm going to talk like you can." He took a breath. "Your name's Raymond Harris." "We checked, Army, 101st Airborne, retired Master Sergeant, served 2 tours in Vietnam, commendations, Bronze Star." Still no response. But that doesn't answer the big question, does it? Ray continued. What happened to you? Who did this, and why? Ray pulled a folded piece of paper from his coat, an old newspaper clipping, photo from a 4th of July parade 10 years back. There, right on the float beside the flag, Raymond Harris, full dress uniform, standing proud. Back then, he was known, respected. Back then, he had a home. Ray turned the paper over. The address listed was a farmhouse on Lakeview Road. He sent Carla to check it out. The house was still there, barely. The paint had peeled, the shutters hung crooked, the mailbox was gone. Inside, it looked like someone had cleared out in a hurry: dust, empty picture frames, a couch with a torn cushion, and in the corner, a cane snapped in half. Back at the hospital, Raymond stirred, eyes open just for a second. He whispered something. Carla leaned in. What did he say? Ray looked down, shaken. Did Ranger find me? The next morning, Ray took Ranger back into the woods. The K9 leapt from the cruiser before the engine fully stopped, no leash, no commands, just instinct. Ray followed close behind. The forest looked different in daylight, less menacing, but no less quiet. The old oak still stood where they'd found Raymond, a ring of disturbed earth remained, boots and branches still pressed into the ground. Ranger sniffed the area once, twice, then bolted east through the underbrush. Ray moved fast to keep up, heart pounding harder than he wanted to admit. 30 yards deeper in, the dog stopped, paws planted, tail stiff. Ray stepped around the brush. There, half buried under pine needles and wet leaves, was a small duffel bag. He crouched down, unzipped it. Inside, a tin of crackers, an old military photo creased down the middle, a legal envelope, and a key. Ray opened the envelope carefully. Inside, a copy of a reverse mortgage agreement, signed 2 years ago, Raymond's name, but the second signature, Brady Harris. He read aloud. Carla had pulled the record back at the station. Brady was Raymond's nephew, his only living relative, filed for Raymond's guardianship 6 months ago, moved into the Lakeview property not long after, then sold it. Which meant the house wasn't taken, it was stolen. Ray stood there in the woods, clutching the photo. In it, Raymond as a young man, smiling, arms around 2 other soldiers, and on the back, in faded ink, "We made it home, that's what matters." Ranger let out a low whine and nudged the corner of the bag. Ray looked down at him. "You're not just a tracker," he whispered. "You're the only one he trusted to bring him back." The dog wagged his tail once. Ray's jaw clenched. "He left the trail," he said, "but someone made sure he couldn't get back on it." He zipped the bag, slung it over his shoulder, and started walking back to the cruiser, back to town, back to the people who needed to hear what they'd tried to ignore. Sheriff Hammond sat across from Brady Harris in a booth at the gas station cafe. Brady looked like he hadn't missed a meal since Raymond handed him the house: pressed shirt, Bluetooth in one ear, keys to a new Ford on the table. He smiled when he saw Ray. "Sheriff, to what do I owe the honor?" Ray didn't return the smile. "I found your uncle." Brady's face twitched. "Uncle Ray? I didn't even know he was missing." Ray slid the reverse mortgage agreement across the table. "Looks like you knew enough to sign his house away." Brady shrugged. "He wasn't all there, hadn't been for years. He told me he wanted out. He also told someone to chain him to a tree." The smile dropped. Ray leaned in. "You sold the house, got power of attorney, but you forgot something." "What's that?" "A man like Raymond Harris doesn't disappear without leaving a mark, and apparently, he left one on a dog." Ray tapped the photo that had been tucked in the duffel bag. "You ever serve, Brady?" Brady scoffed. "No offense, but I didn't see the point." Ray didn't blink. He did: 2 tours, saved lives, came home, and built that house with his own hands. You walked him right out of it and left him to rot. That's a serious accusation, Sheriff. No, that's a statement of fact. You didn't just rob a man, you robbed a soldier, you robbed this town of one of its own. Brady grabbed the envelope and stood. You don't have proof of anything. Ray stood too. Maybe not the kind that holds up in court, but I've got 100 bikers out there who served with him, who remember him, and I've got a town that's going to know what you did by sundown. Brady stepped back. What do you want? Ray didn't raise his voice. You're going to give the money back, every dollar, you're going to sign the house back over, and you're going to do it quietly. Brady laughed. And if I don't? Ray nodded once toward the window. Brady looked out. Across the street, motorcycles lined the curb, men in jackets stood shoulder to shoulder, no signs, no yelling, just watching. Ray picked up the photo and tucked it back into his pocket. If you don't, he said, I'll let them handle the conversation. The paperwork moved faster than anyone expected. By Friday, the house on Lakeview Road was back in Raymond's name. Brady didn't fight it, didn't show his face. Rumor was he left town before the ink dried. No press, no apologies, just silence. But the town remembered. A flyer appeared on the church bulletin board that Sunday, community cleanup, Lakeview House, Saturday at 8 a.m. No signature, no request for volunteers, just a quiet notice. By morning, the driveway was full. Old neighbors brought rakes and paint, high schoolers dragged out old furniture and sorted what could be saved. A man from the hardware store dropped off supplies with a simple note, tell him it's from Paul, 2nd Battalion, 69. Raymond sat on the porch, still weak, still quiet, but upright, watching. Ranger lay at his feet, head on his paws, like he'd never left. Katie, the nurse who'd been there since day one at the hospital, knelt beside him with a mug of tea. You okay with all this? She asked. Raymond looked out over the lawn, kids painting the porch swing, a teenager patching shingles. He nodded once. I didn't think anyone remembered. They didn't, she said softly, but they do now. Raymond reached into the pocket of his flannel shirt, pulled out the photo again, the same one from the duffel bag. He turned it over and scribbled something on the back, held it out to Katie. What's this? Just a note, he said, in case I forget again. She smiled and read the words, not forgotten, just quiet. Down the road, someone started a grill, someone else brought chairs. It wasn't a party, but it felt like something being put back where it belonged. Ray pulled up in his cruiser just before sunset. He stepped out and walked over. You ready for what comes next? He asked Raymond. The old man gave a faint smile. I already had the hard part, he said. Now I just want to live where my boots still fit the floor. The town didn't do ceremonies often, and when they did, they were small, maybe a ribbon, maybe a plaque, no spotlights, no speeches. But this one was different. It was held on a Sunday afternoon, under the old oak tree behind the courthouse, same place where they honored local war dead every Memorial Day. This time, there were no flags at half-mast, no black ribbons, just folding chairs and quiet faces. Raymond sat in the front row, a clean shirt, fresh shave, same boots. Ranger sat beside him, vest pressed, badge shining. Sheriff Hammond stepped up to the mic. He didn't speak long. There are some men who never ask to be remembered, he said. They don't raise their hands, they don't chase headlines, they just do their duty, and sometimes get forgotten in the noise that comes after. He looked down at Raymond. This town forgot someone, and we're here to say we won't do that again. He turned, picked up a small wooden plaque, and handed it to Raymond. It read, Raymond J. Harris, 101st Airborne Division, not forgotten, just quiet. The crowd stood, no applause, just standing. One by one, people approached. Some shook his hand, some just nodded, Others placed small tokens beside his chair, a service patch, a photo, a folded flag. Then came Ranger's moment. The deputy stepped forward and knelt. He pulled a small box from his coat. Inside was a custom K9 medallion, for service beyond duty, the deputy read aloud, and loyalty that never blinked. Ranger didn't understand the words, but when the crowd bowed their heads, he laid his head gently across Raymond's boot. The moment didn't need music or a headline. It just needed people to see and remember. The porch light at the Lakeview house stayed on that night, not because someone forgot, but because someone finally came home. Raymond sat in his old rocking chair, the same one his father had made by hand long before war ever touched his life. Ranger lay curled at the base of the steps, no vest now, no badge, just a dog with tired eyes and a full belly. The town had gone quiet again, but it wasn't the kind of silence that forgets. It was the kind that respects. Katie stopped by just before dusk. She left a paper bag on the porch, soup, bread, and a note, "Same recipe your mama used, you're not alone anymore." Raymond chuckled, picked up the bag, sat back down, and looked at the stars. He didn't need speeches, didn't want parades, he just wanted to be seen, and now he had been. He reached down, scratched behind Ranger's ears. "You found me when even I forgot where I was," he whispered. "Guess that makes you the real hero." The dog thumped his tail once, then fell asleep. Raymond leaned back, the chair creaking gently beneath him. For the first time in years, the wind didn't sound hollow. It sounded like home. If you believe some heroes never stop serving, even in silence, subscribe and help us share the stories that still matter.